Welcome back to another video in this series. I've been building this pedal board for the last couple weeks now and just getting everything dialed in. Right now I'm going to focus on the programming, and in this video I'll be talking a little bit about why I've chosen the Morningstar MC8, how I've set it up, and it'll also serve as a general introduction to MIDI if you're kind of new to the subject. I think a lot of people, myself included, were intimidated by MIDI switching and for that reason didn't want to get into it. It is a little time consuming to set up and to learn the language in the beginning. I actually found it to be pretty intuitive, especially the MC8 and the software that they have on the computer. You'll see the stuff on the screen here as we move through. I'm just hoping that this video convinces you that it's not quite as scary as you might think it is. So yeah, let's just start right off the bat. As you plug in your Morningstar MC8 or whatever MIDI device that you've decided upon, the first thing you're going to have to do is set the MIDI channel for each pedal. So on my own pedal board, I've got the HX Stomp here, the Empress Echo System and Reverb, also the Wampler Terraform, and then off camera a little bit to the right here, I've got the Chase Bliss Warped Vinyl. So I've got 5 pedals that I'm controlling with MIDI. And basically what the MIDI channel does is tells your pedal when to react to a signal and when not to. All of the MIDI cables are set up in a line, so it goes from the MC8. In my case, it goes to the HX Stomp, then to the Echo System, the Reverb, then the Terraform, then the Warped Vinyl over on the side here, then finally back to the MC8. When you send a MIDI message from the MC8, from the brain, it'll travel through all of these pedals. Now, to make sure that we're not affecting stuff that we don't want to affect, we set the MIDI channel so that it only responds on a certain channel. So if I send a program change message on MIDI channel 1, that's going to tell my HX Stomp to do something, and my Echo System, which is set up on channel 2, Reverb on 3, and so on, they're not going to react to that message because they're not set up on MIDI channel 1. So that's the first thing you need to know about MIDI, is when you connect it, you're going to need to set up each pedal with a certain MIDI channel number. From there, we have 2 different kinds of basic MIDI messages. We have program change messages and control change messages. They change a little bit based on which pedal that you're using, but generally speaking, a program change message is going to change the preset of that pedal. A control change message is going to operate as if you're changing a control, a knob or something on one of the pedals. It can actually also function as if you would be pressing the switch. So on the HX Stomp, the way this works is a program change message will switch the presets here. A program change message of 119 will recall preset number 119, and so on. A control change message on the HX Stomp will tell it to engage an effect or make a parameter adjustment within the preset that it's already in. So when I turn the tremolo button here, preset B, that is going to engage a tremolo on the HX Stomp. It's difficult to see. The next video in this series is just going to talk about the HX Stomp and how I've set it up with a larger pedal board rig. And by the way, you can find the entire playlist at the link in the description. If you'd like a little bit more information than the videos give, I chose to create a page on my website where I'm talking through each episode and all the different gear that I've chosen, and I'll link that in the description as well. So, yeah, program change messages, control change messages. In a control change message, you have 2 things. You have the first number, the control change number, which is going to decide what parameter you're adjusting. So, and I'm just making this up because I can't recall off the top of my head. If I want to change the feedback control, let's just say maybe that's set up to be control change 3 on the Echo System. I send from the MC8 on MIDI channel 2 so that the Echo System responds to it. I send the control change number 3. The next message it sends in that same impulse is the control change value. And it's very easy to set it up on the Morningstar editor. This is what it looks like. So you've got the control change number and then the control change value. So the control change value is a value between 0 and 127. 0 is going to be as if the knob was completely counterclockwise. 127 is completely clockwise. And then somewhere in the middle, this might be like 85, but you get the idea on that. You can basically tell the pedal to recall preset number 3. You would engage it with a control change message, and then you would say, you know, I'm using this effect already, but I want to make a small adjustment to it. I want to max out the feedback control. I want to change the feedback control from a control change value of 30, where it might be set now, and I want to max it out. So I'm going to send a control change number 3 to affect the feedback knob, and then a CC value of 127. So that's really the basics of it. If I wanted to control the feedback knob with an expression pedal, you can totally do that. It's pretty easy. You can see the expression value over here. It'll change as I make the expression adjustment, and then also on the Morningstar editor you can see that it's pulled up the expression screen just by changing the expression pedal here. The expression's plugged into the MC8, and when I hit a button here, I could assign the minimum value of the expression pedal to be 0 or 30 if you want the minimum feedback setting to be 30 and the maximum to be 127. So you have control over the feedback knob now with the expression pedal. There's a lot of stuff you can do with MIDI that you wouldn't be able to do otherwise. So now getting into the way that I've chosen to set up the MC8, this just revolves around my own style of music that I like to play. I play a lot of stuff that's heavily improvisational, and I want access to a lot of different sounds at a moment's notice. That's why I decided to go with MIDI in the first place. I also make a lot of music that relies upon wet effects and modulation and stuff. So instead of having a massive pedal board with a bunch of standalone pedals, I decided over the last couple of years on a couple MIDI compatible pedals, and as I gained more funds, I invested in more stuff to make this entire rig happen. So a lot of people like to set up MIDI switchers as each preset being like the intro of a song, the verse of a song, the chorus, the bridge, etc. And it's just a simple switch on each song. On the MC8 you have 30 banks, so you could make 30 songs, or if you split up the banks you could have 4 songs. You can actually page between each bank, so you could have 4 songs for each bank. But you're still kind of limited. I play a lot of improvisational music, and I want to be able to access a whole library of different sounds at a moment's notice. So what I've done here is for my general gigs, maybe when I'm playing with a rock band or just on a bar gig or something, I've set up a couple instant snapshots for wet effects. I've got my clean tone. Preset C on every single preset that I've made is stock or a clean tone or something. We've got clean, lead, wet, mild. These are just different variations of reverb and delay that I think might be useful depending on the genre of music that I'm playing. So I've set up button D here to operate as a tap tempo, and the way this will work is, for most of these cases, the HX Stomp and the ecosystem, the reverb, they can respond with MIDI clock information. So I just set up the press function. So when I press this button, it sends MIDI clock tap data to these 3 pedals. The Wampler Terraform and the Warped Vinyl do not have the ability to respond to clock data, I don't believe. So they have a different way of doing it. You send a CC number of 93 to the Warped Vinyl, which is simulating. It tells you here, there's a nice little guide. It says this is going to operate essentially as if you were pressing the actual tap tempo button on that pedal. The CC number of 81 does the same thing with the Terraform. It just doesn't give you that little hint. Let's talk about the different wet snapshots here for a second. So clean, when I hit clean, it's going to bypass all of the modulation that I've done, and it's basically going to reset my tone to a stock setting, whatever I've set up for reverb and delay. In the general bank for most gigs that I do, it'll be set up to bypass the ecosystem, sending a control change number of 60 and a CC value number of 0 bypasses the pedal. CC value of 127 on the CC 60 number is going to engage it. So I've set it up to bypass the ecosystem and recall preset number 1, program change number 1 on the reverb. When you send this MIDI information, you also need to remember to engage that pedal if you want it to turn on. So in a single function here, when I hit foot switch C, I set it up for a press command. It sends a control change message to the ecosystem, the PC message to the reverb, the CC message to the reverb. This engages it, CC number 60, CC value 127. And then it's going to bypass whatever modulation effect I have on the HX Stomp or the Terraform or the Warped Vinyl, and that's what all these other numbers are doing. So what I've done is just basically make a panic button. If I got confused with whatever preset that I'm running, or I just want a very quick way to get back to a clean sound, that's a button that'll manage that. I've got a lead tone. So the lead tone's pretty simple. It'll recall a preset on the ecosystem and the reverb, and then it'll engage both the ecosystem and the reverb. And that's essentially what wet and mild are doing as well, just with different combinations of PC numbers. You can see them changing here as I switch between. I have set up preset H here, foot switch H, to change banks on the MC8. So this is a really nice thing that you can do that I haven't seen in a lot of other MIDI switchers. So we've got different banks. I've set it up for general gigs, a more complex setting for general music. This is for my originals band, a more complex setting for originals bands that I haven't set up yet. Church style music, church style complex, ambient music, and so on. So the first couple banks are just set up for whatever gig I'm on. And then as we page through here, I'm on bank 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. So bank number 18 is set up to control the HX Stomp looper. There's a lot of different stuff you can do with the new shuffling looper. Video on that in the future if you're an HX Stomp user. I've got a preset set up from master modulation, which will affect, when I get it set up, the modulation in the HX Stomp, the Terraform, and the warped vinyl. And then I've also set up separate presets to control the different presets that I've already saved with the warped vinyl. Different presets that I've saved with the Terraform. So there's Univibe, Flanger, Phaser, EVH, Phaser, Harmonic Tremolo, Rotary, Envelope, and then a bypass button. And then I also have a preset bank to access a bunch of standard type of delay tones, rhythmic delay, worship delay, my originals band delay, ambient delay. Some of these I haven't set up quite yet. Standard reverb, so this will access a collection of 8 different presets for the Empress reverb. And we're at bank 30, we'll bank around back to number 1. So to reconvene, back to the original preset, when I hit foot switch H here, it's gonna pull up an entirely new bank, one that I mentioned just briefly. It's called the rhythmic delay one, and this is where I'm gonna be able to access a bunch of different sounds that'll get me in the vein of U2 or the Edge style playing, where you're doing like a really percussive type delay part. So here's the sound I have when I hit the clean button. Nothing too special. When I hit bouncy, I have all these different selections I can choose from. I've set up 8th note medium, 8th note heavy, triplet 8th note medium, triplet heavy, dotted 8th medium, dotted heavy, quarter medium, quarter heavy. So let's say I'm going to pick up dotted 8th note heavy. Now I can hit the tap tempo button. Pretty quick to do on the fly. So from the clean sound, again, hit bouncy, I need that sound, put in the tap tempo, and of course if I've already tapped in the tempo and I want to change it, the tap tempo doesn't change. Now I've just changed the rhythmic. So this was a tip that I picked up from Mark Johnson. I got to give him a shout out. He's one of my favorite ambient guitarists. How he set up his own Morningstar MC8 is to switch between a bunch of different banks. I'll talk about how I've done that and kind of merged it with a more traditional setup in a second here. To finish out this preset, I've got my different snapshots for wet effects, the one that'll page to the rhythmic delay, the tap tempo button. I've also got modulation accessible here. So these are probably the 2 modulation effects that I use most often. Let's turn off the delay. Tremolo. Just a very light bias tremolo in stereo from the HX Stomp. It's after the wet effects. So I can toggle that on and off. You go in here and let's say I hit preset B. It recalls preset B over here. And it's telling the HX Stomp CC number 15. Now the HX Stomp knows that it's listening to hear what the heck to do with the tremolo block. I've set up the tremolo block to respond with CC number 15. CC value 127 engages it. So when I press it and I turn it on, it sends that message. When I press it again, it turns it off. You can see the screen here change. Tremolo off, and it'll send the value of 0 to the HX Stomp. It turns off the stereo tremolo there. So on the MC8, the way you set it up is basically you just hit that button, it'll recall a blank preset, you set up this information, and then you'll have to choose toggle mode, which is what is going to make it possible for the MC8 to say tremolo off or tremolo on. Helps you keep track of what the heck's happening in your preset. So I've done that with all the modulation effects. So essentially I have everything having to do with overdrive and compression, dry tones from the HX Stomp on the foot switches here. And then I've got all the different snapshots for wet effects. And then I individually have a bunch of modulation effects that I can turn on and off. Tremolo on, off, phaser on, off. And with the MC8, you can actually page here. So for each bank, you have 2 pages. For the second page of this bank, I've set it up with even more effects. So if I want to turn on the wah in the HX stomp, that turns it on and off. Envelope will happen from the Wampler Terraform. Flanger from the Terraform. Obviously, if I engage a Terraform preset and I want to change, I can't stack them on top of each other. So when I hit envelope, it changes the Terraform to function as an envelope instead of the flanger. However, the chorus and vibrato are coming from the warped vinyl. So I could have vibrato plus flanger if I wanted, or vibrato plus envelope. I could have 2 choruses, so I've set up a chorus with the warped vinyl and then a dimension chorus in the HX stomp. So I've got 2 chorus effects running now. There's also a neat rotary sound with the Terraform. So I could, if I wanted to, I could have rotary, dimension, vibrato, and then wah. And instead of having to hit 5 foot switches to turn everything off, I just go back to the first page, hit clean, and I'm back to my stock sound. So there was a very long-winded rundown on how I set up the general banks on the MC8. Let's page through here. I also, for each bank, I have a simple one, which you just saw, and I also have a complex setting. So in this one, this is in a situation where maybe I don't have access to the specific sound that I want in the first bank. The first bank, the simple one, is for convenience. It's very fast to work with. It's mindless. You don't need to think about it much. When I go to the complex one, it's going to take a little bit more work, but I can get a more specific sound. So this is the bit that I've taken from Mark here. You set preset F here, foot switch F. When you press that in the editor here, you'll see this screen pop up. We're on preset F because I just pushed it. Action, press. So when you press it, what are you going to tell it to do? Type is what the action is actually going to be performed. So it's going to be a bank jump. It's going to jump to bank 27, which I have to disconnect this to make it work. When I hit this, it'll jump to bank 27, and bank 27 is set up with a bunch of different sounds here. So if I want a spring verb, and also when I press that, it'll instantly flip back to this screen so I don't have to go through and do an extra foot switch. I hit reverb if I want to change it to a plate sound, and you'll notice they again switched back here. If I want to stack a delay on top of that plate sound, let's say I want an ambient delay. This is just a very slow panning delay that I've set up. So you can create different combinations of effects this way. And I have one set up for the reverb. I have one set up for the echo system. I can still access the bouncy bank if I wanted. This is on pretty much all my presets. I have a panic button, the clean switch, when I want to go back to a stock tone. I have a bank set up for the Terraform, all the different effects I can get out of the Terraform. Let's turn on a rotary sound. Turn it off. I have a bank set up for the warped vinyl, and you can see how this spider webs. You can just create a bunch of different sounds, whereas in the first setup, we just have kind of the minimum, what I like to use. So keep going here. I have a preset, a bank set up here for the Inner Urge. It's my originals band. So when I was touring with this group last year and the years prior, I basically was using the echo system and the reverb just set up in foot switch mode. It was kind of clumsy to go between all the banks, but I did have a lot of sounds that were very specific to that group. So I've set up a couple different wet snapshots. Stock tone has a little bit of a delay on it. Dry is just completely clean. If I wanted a lead tone with a phaser, that's how you would do that. And there's a lot of songs that I can get away with using the same general tones on, but there's a lot of songs that also have very unique types of wet tones to them. It's kind of like a jazz fusion ambient group. And what I've done with the second page here is I've set it up for those specific songs. So the press of a foot switch here will get me to the song for Fall Into Existence. That recalls all the preset information I need for that song. When I hit F, it'll pull up the A section of a song called Carbon Copy. That's what CCA is, Carbon Copy Section A. It's like a kill dry wet tone. Carbon Copy Section B is a little bit cleaner. I've got a song called Moonbeamin'. Has a very distinct delay part. But yeah, that's what I've done the second page here, and then a button for swell. Switch it to volume mode. So yeah, if we keep going here, I haven't set up the complex one there. I've also got a preset set up for church kind of playing. A bunch of different options for, here's the stock tone, here's the lead tone, here's a cloud, Strymon cloud emulation. Ghost mode on the reverb is awesome. One for swells. One with a shimmer setting. Ambient pad clean. Modulated pad. And then we've got a bunch of modulation effects if I wanted tremolo after the wet effects. Maybe I'll turn on a chorus effect from the warped vinyl also. And if I want to clear all the modulation, I've got a button set up for that. So that's turned off the modulation. However, the wet effects have not changed. Back to the stock sound. It's just the press of a button. A long video, I know. I hope this was helpful to you in some way. If you're interested in checking out some of the other videos of this entire pedal board build, I talk about the hardware that I've used, how I've wired everything together, soldering custom cables. It's pretty simple to do as well. Just the talk through of the signal path. The next video is going to be on the HX Stomp presets that I've made. If you want to check out the entire playlist, again, link in the description, and another link will be to the website the webpage that I've made on my own website, rather, of just a rundown of the entire series. So if this was useful, hit the like button, maybe consider subscribing to the channel. Doing that ensures that this video is going to hopefully find someone else that's looking for the answers that I've shared with you here. And anyway, thanks. Just take care, stay safe out there. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.